update on his sort of sustainability journey and give us some hints and tips of how we can get started. So like I said, this will be on the website, so anybody wants to sort of pick anything up following this, if anybody has got any questions throughout, I'm sure Howard will be happy to answer, and likewise if you've got any questions afterwards, I'm sure he'll pass on contact details if you want to get in touch with him privately. But over to you, Howard, and let me know if there's anything you need.
Okay. Brilliant. Thanks very much, Fran. Nice friendly audience today. I know most of you. So I think the idea of this lunch webinar is for you to sit back, have your lunch, and maybe learn a little bit. I'm definitely not going to put myself across as the expert in the room. I've learned a fair amount. I think a lot of ESG is common sense. So I'm just going to really sort of have a chat about our journey and how we have progressed so far at the Number Crunchers. I'm going to focus that round of presentation. I certainly think I'm going to share my screen first. Bear with me. Let's share that one. So can we all see that screen now?
Yep, you can see it.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, all good.
Hopefully that will run now. So I'll just start off with a straightforward statement. A business that makes only money is a poor business. I got that sort of sat quite well with me. It sort of seems to make a lot of sense. I think when anyone starts off in business, I'm not too sure money is the primary motive. I think they've either got a good idea, maybe a passion about something, and they normally take that passion, and money tends to be an outcome of that. But I don't think anyone particularly sets off and says, oh, I'm going to do this for money's sake. So I just resonated with that and thought to start with that. I'm going to tell you a little bit more about the Number Crunchers. Some of you know a little bit more about us already, some know less. We're based here in 14 London Road. It started off about 10 years ago with just myself, and I knew what I didn't want, and that was to get another job at the time. And I also, at the same time, I knew what I did want, and that was to make a difference and actually really sort of try and help people and help customers. I'd always felt they weren't necessarily served that well by larger accountancy firms. So I wanted to really help people run their businesses. That was 10 years ago. Today there's 7 of us. You can see us here around our sort of new board table in London Road, just around from the Barn Theatre. Got Johnny here, you've got Ryan, you've got myself, Gaynor, Margit, Claire, Jack, and there's another couple of people who don't work out of Cirencester, Leslie and Rosemary. So, but all of that makes up our team Number Cruncher, who look after our customers here. We specialise in Zero and Dext, which is paperless accounting. It was one of our sort of like unique points, and we learned that by learning one set of software really, really well, we could really look after the customers and to sort of build up that bespoke experience for them and their own numbers, hopefully making it much, much easier. But more than that, they often turn to us for sort of ideas and who do we know and what do we do. So we kind of extend our knowledge across all areas, just to really build up that sort of family feel within our customers and our employees and our community just outside there. Nowadays, Number Crunchers, as many people know, my partner, Gaynor Hutton, she's my partner in business and partner in life too. So we run the Number Crunchers with our team here in Cirencester. Anything you need to do with accountancy, give us a call, let us know. Even if you just have a query, we'd be more than happy to have a little chat and point people in the right direction. So that's the Number Crunchers. Didn't know which order to have this slide in. We've got 2 slides coming up. One is identifying your stakeholders, and 2 is what difference does that sort of stakeholder impact have. So I would have said that we were a tiny tiny business, and we were back in 2014. But I think today is what I'm going to teach you. I'm going to give you some tips, but I think the main thing I thought about was, well, if I give you 10 tips, it will probably take 10 minutes and we're all learned a little bit and it'll be great. So what I wanted to do was try and explain it a couple of steps back as to how we sort of came about that and why we make a difference. So I probably will start on the next page of identifying who your stakeholders are, because I think everyone thinks that a business serves its shareholders. And in fact, the shareholder is probably only one element of it. It's certainly important to us, but it's probably not the most important. So when we say stakeholders, I would say a stakeholder in any business is the people or planet or anything that's affected by the activity you do. So obviously you are one of the stakeholders in your business. Your staff are also stakeholders because they're affected on how you run your business, what happens within that. Shareholders, again, that's often you at the SME level, but they again are affected by your activities within the business. You've then got direct stakeholders. These are your people who interact directly with you. It could be customers, it could be suppliers, it could be investors. All of those, again, where you have bars here, there's no relevance to this, or there is a relevance, but it will be different from business to business. So we're a small accountancy business. We don't have a massive impact on the planet, whereas, you know, Mark from Cirencester Fabrication, he might be looking at some of these in slightly different way or weight them with different factors. The answer is, there is no answer. It's about finding the right balance for your business, in my view. So you've got your direct impacts there, and then you've got your external stakeholders, like the communities, your business community, of which we're here today at Cirencester Chamber. You've got the planet, obviously, that we live on, and then you've got government, society, probably more society. What's the right thing to do, and what happens with your actions in your business? How do you affect each and every one of those, and how do you get that balance right? Because what we're talking here is E, S, and G: environmental, social, governance. And many people think, oh, it's just E, it's just about climate change. It's just that's how we do business. But it's not really, is it? There's a lot more to E, S, and G. And so today I'm going to pick up, not all of my tips are, let's just turn the lights off, or let's just do something that's going to affect the planet. It's very much about changing your mindset within your own business to how you can ripple that out across other businesses and the effect that you have on the stakeholders. So going back to the first slide, which is where I started, the first year that we ran was in 2014. So from January to December 2014, I started off, it was just me. The turnover was 31,872. Directors and pay and subcontractors pay was 6 grand. I spent 15 grand on other things, and when I was left with and paid 2 grand in corporation tax. So if you fast forward through to last January, and just 1 month on its own, our revenue was 38,400. So we did more in 1 month than we did in our first 12 months. We were delighted. You know, it's a really good sort of statement for our business. Staff and directors pay 13,554. We spent 9,245, and calculated that it was 3,396 corporation tax due on that. The final column, and I can't quite read it because these team bits are in that, but or the Zoom bit is in it. I'm going to move that. So a small business like ours, over the 112 months that we've done up to the end of April 2023, we've actually generated a revenue of 1.278 million. We've spent on wages 552,000. We've spent 549,000 on other things and contributed 33,800. So even if you look at your business as a small business, it can have a big impact. So the choices you make on E, S, and G now, if they're set out well, will have that impact. And it's just about having a look at that. So just a sort of view of what a small business can be. So these are the stakeholders that we look at. And I'm going to have a little sort of chat about now on the next slide about how that fits into it. So I went for a really, oh, I've gone too far. Went for a really massive mouse point on this so you can see it. Hopefully you can see my mouse on the screen. So we know who the stakeholders are of any business. It's you, the employees, the shareholders who are immediately involved in the business. It's your customers, suppliers, investors who are directly connected with your business through relationships. And then you've got the wider communities, planet and government and society. But what do they actually want? And the stakeholder pillars, which are sort of identified, are principles. What's the right thing to do? You know, what do I want people to think of as the number crunchers? I'd like to think that they think that we are generally on the side of good. People, we want to treat people with respect and generosity, and the same with the planet. So if we can achieve all of these things, then we'd also like to do quite well out of it, and so that we have abundance within all of that. But again, there's no particular order to this that I'm aware of, but I rarely would see someone put prosperity first. Certainly in the SME market, I think we're always looking at what are our legacies, you know, what do people think of, how well are they connected, are they like-minded? It's certainly the way I would like to be seen as an accountancy firm as to where we are. I don't know if you can see the mouse, I'm hoping you can. But within here is, I've put down the bottom, what action will you take? And if we start at the left-hand side, the dotted line on the left, and underneath it, it says do nothing. So the closer to the edges of the circle, the worse that it is. So if we do nothing, we just let the planet sort of carry on. We don't take no action on climate change. It's not a great journey for the climate. So it's actually just sitting towards the planet's limits. It will just eventually go. And the same with people. If we just put them on a 0 hours contracts, we don't care about them, we don't look after their needs, then again, we're just sort of sitting on the edges of a perimeter. And through the journey on here from left to right, this is the sort of people's journey, and we sit within this planet. I've put stakeholder economics with the donut twist because I'm going to give you a couple of points of reading later on. And donut economics is a thing, and it's about sort of like working in hand within the planet's limits, and also within the social foundation of meeting people's needs within that. So we start here and we say, well, actually, this is a fairly mean-spirited approach, and I don't think it's going to be good for the planet, and I don't think it's going to be good for the people within the planet. As we sort of move on to that, do no harm, and that's great. You're sort of not particularly helping the planet, or you're not particularly helping people, but you seem to be fair enough. You get on with your business and all is good. But if you start to move into the next section, where you start to say, well, I'm going to do what pays for my business to do the right thing. That means I get more customers. That's a good thing. I do my fair share, or I'm generous. It kind of gets you into this green zone. And this green zone is what I'm going to talk about, is all to do with the balance. You know, if you look after someone's basic needs and you pay them more than you should, then they move into the comfort zone. They can afford more things. They can go on holidays, that, you know, they've got security at home. They've got those types of things that people want, which comes back to the stakeholders' pillars, you know, principles and looking after things. So here you're looking for the bullseye. It's always been good. And in my view, as long as you're sat somewhere along here, and it's just about thinking about the things that you do for your people, because it will have a direct effect on the planet, doing your fair share, yeah, that should hit you quite comfortably in here. But then as you start to go beyond that, you're going to move back towards the edge of the circle, and that again would move you into bad. When things are in excess, when there's overconsumption, you're going to really move away from people's needs. It's in probably fat cat territory, I would say there. So we're sort of thin cat through to fat cat. But really what we're trying to do is say, make your choices, and make your choices somewhere in the middle, because if you can get this balance right, and it won't be right for everyone, but try and pick that. So that's really, we definitely didn't come up with this map at the beginning of where we were within our business. But as we've developed, it really develops a sort of a feel-good factor. And that's where I've put it, the happy zone. It could be the feel-good zone. Within donut economics, it would probably be called the safe and just space for humanity, but that sounds a bit convoluted and a bit high. No, it's just what makes you feel good. So making these ESG choices is all about sort of sitting somewhere in the balance. So with that, I'm going to go on and really sort of take that philosophy and just move one step forward. And what can you actually do? So I've written this out almost like it's a science, but it's not a science, it's my science. There is no risk assessment score to actually go and work out what your ESG footprints are, but I'm going to give you a few pointers on each one on what could you do right today. So here's one: you can change your search engine. There's a search engine called Ecosia, and Ecosia will plant trees depending on the number of searches that you do. It's got a Google Chrome add-in. So every time you search, it will generate, you build up your number of searches. And I think I've planted 7 trees since I converted to them. It was probably about 2 or 3 months ago. So we've implemented this into our workplace. It was a personal thing, but I'm doing it, Gamer's doing it, and now we've rolled it out to our teams. We know that every time that we're running a general search, it will actually generate a little bit of tree planting. So I've given it an impact level of 2 out of 10. I've given an effort level of 1, because again, everything that you're going to do is putting yourself out in some way to gain some reward. And that reward is either feel good, not feel good, or what is it? So, and I've put down here the ripple effect, and that is the stakeholders that we talked about. What does the impact level of my effort come across to all of my, well, it's going to affect me, it's going to affect the communities and the planets because we're planting more trees. So I've given this an overall score of 3, which is a bit like a risk assessment. It's impact level divided by the effort, gives me a sort of score, and it affects 3 people within my stakeholders list. So it's quite an immediate sort of takeaway that you could run and make that change today. So at the end of this session, just look up Ecosia, add it to your Google Chrome, and you too can start making a small difference to the trees. So next one, look at your waste. It seems quite apparent. I think there's a lot of office-based people on today. Mark's got a different level of waste. He'll have sort of scrap, steel, all those types of things. So it's going to be different for each and every business, but I think we did it really early on, this one, and we generate around about 10 litres of waste per week. That is about 1 carrier bag out of an office. Now, we're not all manned here all the time. There's 7 of us. There's probably about 3 or 4. We do a hybrid working scenario. It's probably about 3 or 4 of us in the office on any one day. But what we, it was quite obvious at the beginning. I spent, I think it was about 70 quid on a recycling unit. So I had a space for plastic, a space for cardboard, and a space for tins. And if you build that in your office and label it up, staff will literally use it. That they look at plastic, I'm going to put that there. So we could start to cycle that out immediately. And interestingly enough, we revisited that this year. And something that we've implemented this year is that we're keen gardeners and got an allotment. So we thought, well, look at all that food waste. We saw banana skins in the bin, and albeit them going to landfill is not a bad thing, because it will help break down the other items. We just actually thought that could go to direct composting. So now we've got a compost bin here. Myself and Gaynor will carry that back once a day, but it's a small change, but we were able to put that out and get a little bit more. So we have even less waste, or the waste that we have is going to where it should go. So again, I'm saying, the impact level, there is no science to this. So, please don't say, well, what impact level is this, Howard? It's your judgment of your activities. So you have a look at that and how much effort is that to change. It might just be changing a contract for some of you, but often it's just looking about it and saying, well, yeah, I could do that. I could carry that all home. We don't use commercial recycling because we're an office. We can carry the plastic home and put it in at home. Works great. So we're not employing more sort of carbon footprint by collecting it separately. But as we get bigger, maybe that will change, but who knows. So that's another thing that you could do today, and look at that. Stop printing. There's some people, now hopefully many of you are over this now. Many people aren't really over it. They think they are, but sometimes I need to see it to concentrate on it and make some notes on that. There are Adobe PDF writers, Cute PDF, you can write on things. You really don't need to be printing anymore. This was one of the very first things we gave up. And I used to have really neat folders, and we had a little crunch stamp. And every time the customer sort of processed the receipt, they'd crunch it and then they'd file it. And it was a really nice little system. But I think within the year I said, it's not right. You know, we don't need all of that paper. So what we did, we sort of used Xero and we signed up with Dex. So everything that we do is completely paperless. We look at PDFs, they're attached to the documents within the accounting system. It has a massive, massive impact. One thing we did notice, I think in the first year, we spent 1,500 quid on printing and stationery. And I think by the second year, it was down to 200. So it really does flow through to your pocket, that one. And that gives you an opportunity to spend that elsewhere and use it in a better purpose. So just look around your office. What have you printed? Did you need to print it? Are there other ways around it? Because it has a really, really strong effect that, and that's a really useful thing to do. Move your pension. So pensions, there's a thing called sort of passive investing in fossil fuels. And I'm pretty sure, not 100%, maybe someone will correct me later, but I'm pretty sure at a Shell meeting recently, the principal shareholders voted against aiming for sort of an emissions target by 2030 or 2050. I can't remember exactly. And those principal investors were pension holders. And that's where your auto-enrollment pension, your company pensions can end up. And people think, well, I'm not managing that. It's nothing to do with me. It's a big change to change your pensions, but it's got a really high impact, because if you take the money away from these fossil fuel pensions and the people who are voting on your behalf, then and you put it into green funds, then they will eventually move, because they will follow where the money and the returns are. So the pension that we recommend is collegiate. It's as green as we could find out there. There is a link through to BlackRock and the way it was originally funded, so that it's not the absolute greenest. But again, with everything you do here, you're looking at balance. What can I do? How can I change? Even with the existing pensions, you could look at a green fund, and I think these will be the ones that perform better over the next few years. And even if they don't perform quite as good, perhaps you'll just feel a little bit better inside that that you've done the right thing, and that you're not really encouraging something by passive investing. Really, sort of, it can be a hassle to change. But really, it's just a few forms. But if you started with that, so we've moved our company plan from, we were with Smart Pension, and we've moved to everyone into collegiate. So now our staff actually understand that we're with someone a bit more sort of greener, that ties in better to our values. Every pension that we set up for auto-enrollment is now collegiate. So we've corrected it going forward. And we're also giving our customers the opportunity to switch and make that positive change. Yes, new direct debit, new form to fill. Yes, Smart Pension don't particularly want you to leave. So it's not particularly easy, but really worth the effort, I think. So moving your pension, really good idea. Timer plugs. This is something we've put in this year as an impact. So some of you will have seen our office refurbishment downstairs. So we have 8 monitors downstairs. We have we've got 10 monitors upstairs. We've got a number of devices that stay sort of on. And when you finish your day's work, you just unplug your laptop from your docking station and you head off. And the standby power. So what we did is we said, we're going to put timer plugs on everything. And we've got a downstairs fridge as well, which we need to keep cool, but not all the time. So one way of making sure that there's no power being used at night is we put in timer plugs. So from 7:30 at night to 7:30 in the morning, there will be no power to the monitors. So I know it's gone beyond standby. Small change, probably a small impact level, really good feel-good level. And I know that I'm doing the most I can to actually save the planet and use less utility, just be wiser with what we've done. Affects communities, planets, government, society. Again, this is my guide to how we've done it. Hopefully it will give you some ideas on how you might formulate your ideas surrounding your decisions. Pay your suppliers quickly. Our rule is we will pay our suppliers generally within 7 days of their invoice. And I think if you think about the way we did it is we said, what makes a good customer, not what makes a good supplier. So for us, a good customer pays quickly and doesn't quibble. So generally that's what we said, well, okay, we're going to do that. We're going to change ourselves to be the best customer we can be, because every touch point with the number crunchers should be a positive one. And that's the way we want it to be. We've got our utilities are on standing orders, direct debits, that type of thing. Of course, you know, that's how they get paid. I've got no problem with that. But if you deal with us directly from Lounge Design or any of our sort of local customers, you know that we're not going to particularly ask you about the price. You've priced it well, we hope. Hopefully, you know, if we had a budget in mind, say for our refurb, we just say, this is our budget. So we still sort of get our value for money. But ultimately, we're happier that you're making money and that it goes around, and changing that mentality of, oh, let's batter this one off that one, or let's batter to get the price down. It just doesn't, for us, it doesn't, we waste so much time doing that actually, if you just paid the right price, paid them on time, and removed all of these thoughts and issues that go around this supply chain issue, you'd end up a heck of a lot happier, or certainly we have. And we feel great. Customers or suppliers will phone us and we should be a pleasure to deal with, easy to deal with. And yeah, they're pleased. Hopefully they're pleased. We certainly are. So delete your data. So I said get rid of paper, and now I'm saying delete your data at the same time. As we build up our records, I think it's really easier. So the rules haven't changed. It's 7 years for financial records. I think we've all been out and we've taken loads of photos and put it on social media, and we've done this. And each time we do that, we might be saving 5 items of the same photo, slightly different, but because it costs you nothing, or appears to cost you nothing, you just say, oh, well, I'll leave it there and I've got 5 options of it. Delete the 4 that didn't look that good. Back in the days when we had 35mm film, you would have printed them all, and you would have left the 4 that looked rubbish in the packet and used the 1 good one for your wall. Just treat it exactly like that. There's no exact science to this, but these data centers that are building up, all of your data has to go somewhere. Just checking the time, seeing how I'm doing. So the hammer up rapidly on. All of your data has to be stored somewhere. And these are being stored in data centers. And if you imagine everyone's photos, everyone's records, receipts, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And potentially, they reckon it could be like 3.2% of the global consumption of energy by 2025. And Google Drive, Microsoft, they will all make it seem very cheap, because what they're going to say to you, and the same as they did to me, they're going to say, oh, it's £1.59, to update your storage from 10 gigabyte to 100 gigabyte to 1 terabyte, and they'll do this throughout our lives, and it'll always be that, well, it's only £1.59. Who's going to say no to that? Reality is, do you need to keep it all because it's going to cost the planet using that energy to produce, to store something? So all I would say is look at your folder structure once a year, or have a system, get in there, delete out what you don't need to have, particularly receipts and things like that. And we store them on Dext. We recommend you delete them from your phone, have them in a sort of a cloud backup, because that is pretty secure. So you've got 2 copies, the original place in the cloud backup, and thereafter maybe a hard drive or something like that, but you don't need it in sort of 8 places, because it's just consuming more and more resource to serve that, and for something you may or may not look at over any period of time. So I reckon that whilst that is sort of relatively, it's got a high impact now, I think that's going to become more and more and more. But it does take time to go through and look at, what do I actually have? What do I need to have? And I think with the digital era, it's likely that we, like I say, these 7 years financial records, I've every intention of going in after 7 years and deleting them and throwing them out, same as I did with the old box storage that I used to have. So that's one area of doing, delete your data. I think it will become important. Review your supply chain. Everyone can run a report on this accounting software. What are their policies? Who do you want to do business with? Where do I spend my money? If there's ever a reason to get away from, if I told you our story of British Gas and how they'd hounded us on the phone, there is such a reason to get away from them. But go for 100% green electricity supply, ecotricity. Maybe go for 100% green cloud hosting, Crystal. These are simple moves, and who cares if it costs you a small bit more? You're actually doing it the right thing with the right people, and it will help you sort of, if you enter it into it with a sort of spirit of, actually, I'm just going to do that as long as it's a good enough price. It takes away decision making for you, because you just make the right decisions. So again, I think that's going to have a really big impact level. Start with the biggest. That's all I would say. Zero and a company called Ecology have started to work together. So actually, what it does is it drills into your suppliers, and you can code them what industry they are, and that would help give you a sort of footprint on where you are carbon wise, which helps sort of achieve net zero. So there's a lot of tools out there which can help you sort of review who and what you do business with. If you're looking for a green accountant, see the number crunchers. That's us. Gift and donate. Give what you can, especially when your cup is full. And this is what we do as a company. This is a massive score. It's got a it's got a high impact level because you're giving money. Your effort level all time, your effort level is minimal, particularly if it's money. So what do we do here at Number Crunchers? We started small. The chamber, I gift maybe 4 hours a month, 5 hours a month to that, meeting people, doing this type of thing, telling about people. Cirencester Opportunity Group, we give them 20 quid a month. Plus Gaynor became the trustee of this. So that relationship developed. I met Steph at a chamber do, told me of her thing, and I said, you know what, Steph, we're going to give you 20 quid a month. Now, I would get all of you to look through your bank accounts today and go through and find that subscription that you're subscribed to, which is meaningless. It probably is something that you don't even use that. Delete that subscription to Adobe or something that you may not, or not getting the value out. Convert it into something positive or a charity. Breast cancer, we give 25 quid a month to. Cirencester Open Airport, we don't as yet, but Gaynor, I'll just let you know that I met this lady at Cotswold Networking the other night. Their electricity bill has gone through the roof. It's a really important cause. We're going to probably put in 25, 30 quid a month on that. And we're just making...
He drops these in when everybody's witnessing, so I have to say that's fine, dear.
Absolutely.
That's fine, dear.
Cirencester business launch support. This is our own initiative, whereby I wanted to invest in the communities that our business community in particular. There is always churn, there's always chip, but I wanted to help the business community. So 6 of us have set this up, and we put money into it. We put £75 in a month. Other companies, Lounge Design, Cotswold Lake Brew, Ali Castle, Michelle Milner from Cirencester Sales and Lettings. We're going to set up a mentor and support group whereby we can help people with really good business ideas, help them get off the ground. So we created that one. But all of this comes from just really doing our good business and giving a little bit back. So look at your subscriptions. If there's something naff, or even if you can just afford 20 quid a month, it makes such a difference to each and every one of these small charities. And it's not so much the one-off donations, it's the regular donations, things they can rely on. So if, you know, from this call, there was, we've got 5 or 6 people on here. If you picked your own one and you went off and put 20 quid a month in, you're not going to notice it through your business, but they really do notice it at a community level. And you'll feel great. You will feel much, much better. Lead by example, and I'm not too sure. I think I put Eco Warrior in for that picture, and that seems to come out. It looks nothing like me, but I do try and lead by example. You're the boss. Define what's acceptable in your workplace. It will take effort. It does take time. It may feel like you're dragging your ideas across your staff sometimes, but if they understand what's important to you, and often it is important to them, it will affect every part of your business. So, you know, if my staff know that we pay our suppliers on time, they know that it's important that we recycle. Every aspect that I've covered off today is well communicated. They know that that's how we live and breathe. That's what makes the Number Crunchers part of what we do. So lead by your example there. Really important point. Going to give you 3 good reads, which I think, you know, just to say that I'm not at that original graph was an absolute madness. Donut economics is a thing. I'm going to say these first 2 books, I would speed read them. If you're anything like me, they're quite sciencey, but there's some really good sort of thought process in there, but they will drill down into probably too much detail for me. And that's coming from me, Howard, the accountant. But I would speed read these because donut economics is going to sort of talk about that sort of social foundation and the planet's limits and actually that, you know, shareholding and why are we clung on to this GDP model? Because it's not necessarily going to work. And I think the other thing, it will give you an outside the box sort of thinking that maybe you could apply to your business and not always be shareholder led. Sacred economics, again, it's really to make you think differently about what's going to happen. So this is about our reliance on the debt growth economy, of which we are there. America is about to finance, I don't know, trillions and trillions of dollars. The secret of the debt growth economy is that 90% of it doesn't exist. It's only the 10%. Essentially what America are doing, saying that we haven't got any money, we can't afford to pay anyone, but the people who lend them, so we'll make some more money up. And as long as we can service the interest and debt, you know, service that debt, then we're good for that, but we're never paying back the capital. Some of you from years ago might remember the Drop the Debt campaign, where the third world countries were trapped because they couldn't get out of their debt. That is the debt growth economy. Now, debt can always be serviced when you grow, but when you shrink, it can't. So I don't know where we're heading in the world, but I think that would just help explain where we are, you know, what the thinking is. Can we all sustain it? How's it going to change? I don't really know, but I really like talking about it. The Green Grocer, it's a great little book by Richard Walker. Now, he runs Iceland's Foods. I've read that on holiday in Dubai, probably the most ungreenest place to read it, but we all take holidays, we all need different things. It's a really, what I liked about that book was he works in Iceland. Now you've got to be in a competitive marketplace. So he's had to make sort of compromises and do the best he can. And the way he talks that through is still remaining commercial, still got a lot of people saying, oh yeah, but you're not fully committed to this. He does what he can and he explains it in a really good way. So I think you're struggling with what can I do? How can I do it? he is the one that made me actually get off my arse and move the pension. He said that's what they did. He said, and that's a really passive way of doing it. If you do one thing, do it. I came back from Dubai. Mum and Dad were ill for a long time, so I didn't do it that year, but actually it sat in the back of my mind. And in February, when our time was over, I said, right, actually, it's time to move our pension. It's time to do something positive. So we're almost through. Some really good books there for you to read. Start thinking about your E, S, and G and what it looks like for you. That's just business. People say that, you know, oh, he's a lovely guy, but the moment he gets behind the wheel, he becomes a different person. He starts shouting, he starts getting... I hear this quite commonly, or have heard it, where people say that's just business. And I've put below what I think they're saying about that. And I think it's a term for allowing low-value decisions with a commercial veil to excuse a level of bad or immoral behaviour. If someone gets knocked down on the way to the counter and I rush through and just push them down and say, oh, I've got the last thing, you know, that's not just business. That's the way you do business. How you do business is how you choose to do business. The weird thing about it is it's got the word just in it, you know, and I think when you put the word just in it, it's sort of saying, well, that's one thing. So what I would say from your ESG, it doesn't matter which bits you pick, start doing something positively, tell people about it, spread that word, so that when people, you know, if people start to say, well, actually, there's £200 a month, which is now going out to charities, that's just business, because change it into a positive way, because that's where I think that the sort of businesses should be going. It should have a really positive impact. And we're sort of privileged enough to make those changes. So I think that would be my closing thoughts for that is think about what is just business and make it a better business for you and all those that are involved with your activities. So hopefully I've given you a few ideas there. I'm going to stop the share and maybe let Fran open up to any questions or comments or thoughts you may have. Where am I? 160.
Thank you, Howard. So I've got a quick question, if you don't mind me starting.
No worries.
What's the next sort of big project? Doesn't even need to be big, but what's the next sort of thing on the agenda that you really want to tackle?
I think it's probably part of the same is the pensions. That's the big one for me at the moment. That and data. I'm really sort of concerned about our storage of data and how that's going to sort of impact. So I think there's still massive issues, and that's where I think that I would keep on going on with that at the moment, because I don't think they're shrinking. And I think those are the sort of key issues that I would sort of look at. The other thing I've got about as well is I think local, and we were chatting with someone the other day about making something so much more regional that we're losing the regionality of the difference between us and Newcastle or whatever it be. We made a decision to buy Seriously tissues. So it's just the toilet paper supplies for here. Now you'll see them all over the internet, all over Facebook. Oh, buy this green one, buy that green one. Is it that green to bring bamboo into our country and, you know, from across the world? I don't know. It's probably got a better footprint than Andrex, but actually we chose one which was in Manchester and is using recycled cardboard. So that's how we're choosing to do it. So really sort of like engage locally. And I think that should have a big impact. You know, that's really important to us sort of going forward.
No, it's very, very thought-provoking. I have just one basic question. I had to just pop out at the very, very beginning, and maybe you covered it off. Your logo, how did that come about, and the colours?
The logo came about really. I mean, I could do another sort of whole session on branding and my sort of thoughts on branding. I think when I set out, I wanted to have a sort of clear identity and logo sort of centered around that. It just was really just picked as having some bright colours. The name, the number crunchers, was a slang term for what you would call an accountant. But I quite liked it because it was quite honest. And the first thing I did was go to Les Stevens of Prints and Threads, and I had my shirts made up, which I wear every day. Maybe it's really easy to have a uniform, but from that visit to Les, where I ordered my 7 shirts, within 2 years, he was a customer, and now he's a friend, and and it's actually just shows you how sort of like getting involved locally and working from that, how it just expands. It's that ripple effect from, I never realized when we started out that we would, be spending 555 grand on wages. It just wasn't even on my mind. It was just one guy, so it really, think about what you're doing today, because it will ripple, and like a ruler on the end of a thing, it really will expand and can have a big effect by the time it gets down to the other end of the ruler, if you twang a ruler.
Howard, I've got a question. Thank you for going through all that. The pension side of it is always a interesting conundrum about where you're investing, or who's investing what. What have you found from an investment point of, or a returns point of view, of going with the ethical company as opposed to others in the market? Where have you sort of found those returns to be?
I think 10 years ago, Mark, they were probably under par. I think people were making a choice, but actually paying for it, perhaps financially, or it wasn't as effective. It's certainly sort of, arsy-tarsy is what I'm going to say. There's not significant differences between the green areas at the moment. So, really within points of a percentage. I'm getting an unstable connection here. Hopefully I'll stay on. So yeah, it's not that significant that I can see, Mark, and there's big thinking that actually the green investments are going to return better over the next few years, over the next sort of decade.
How do you spell Collega?
Collegia. I mean, I think you can find there are other ones out there. This was a really good auto-enrollment solution. I think if you have private pensions, you still have I mean, Fran, you'll be able to input on here. You can choose green funds, can't you? Even with, within SJP or any of these, you can elect where.
There's lots now that you can. It's really, really flexible. So that it's great that there's companies out there who specifically do that, especially for auto enrollment as an option. I think is brilliant. But if you've got individual pension plans, each provider who you are with now should have their own sustainability or green option. So what generally it would mean is, if you're in sort of a basic portfolio or fund, you'll have a mixture of everything. But you can go in and take out bits that you don't want in there. So if you don't specifically want something like oil, plastics, things like that, you can strip that out. But likewise, you can add more sustainable funding in there as well. So there's lots and lots of things that you can do.
What do you think on the rates, Fran? Are they significantly different, or?
So I think costs of running a pension wise, you're not going to see much difference, because I think a lot of companies have been trying to push that sustainability piece, especially over the last 10 years. I think a lot of companies have still got a way to go, but we're definitely headed in the right direction. In regards to returns, it's really hard because it does depend on what else you've got in there. Some people will strip out lots and lots of things, so it would be really hard to give an exact percentage, but I think there's definitely a leveling up happening where actually the returns are the same. It can sometimes in some cases be better in sustainability funds.
I did like your formula though, Howard. I thought it was quite thought-provoking as to how simple you can gauge what your actions or change of actions actually yield, which was, I think, quite a good kind of model to have. It's easy to pick the ones you can choose if you can't do them all.
I think that was it. I mean, I quite often I've gone to some presentations and I just feel I've seen them and I still don't know where to start. So today was a timer plug using Ecosia. These are things that it doesn't feel ESG, but if you write it all down, and actually really getting a presentation like this together helped us to think about what do we do, why are we different, how have we made that difference. And it is degrees of 1%, and each time you make that change, you think about each and every action, and you know, does it make a difference? Does it make a difference if I choose it that way? And if you think it does, you'll feel better. You will just feel better.
Yeah, no, I think it's very good. Yeah. Oh, thanks. Again,
And really,
I
the
found
Greengrocer
Lou,
is a
yeah.
fantastic book about one man's struggle mentally, about what I can do and how can I, you know, and he just sticks to his guns and does what he can do, and is unapologetic for that, and so it should be.
No, very good, quite entertaining, and makes you think about what you can do. I think you're right. I was just going to go and print something, but I'm not going to now.
Thank you, Derek.
Any other questions? So what I will do, Howard, if you don't mind sharing the slides with me, if everybody's happy and if Howard's happy to share,
Yeah,
then I'm
absolutely.
going to send those out so that you can get all of those book recommendations and those hints and tips, just so that you've got them. Any questions?
Brilliant. I think we're all
Nothing from
good.
me. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Perfect.
I better get back to work now. The boss will be after me.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing your time, everyone. Hopefully,
thank you.
Thank you. And just quickly, our next catch-up is on a slightly different time than our usual lunchtime arrangement. So next month, so Tuesday the 27th of June, date for your diary. So we are going to go across to Roots and Seeds and have a face-to-face meeting just to capture anybody who lunchtime doesn't necessarily suit. So we're planning that event to start around 4:45, 5 o'clock. But to catch everybody from work, sort of presentations won't start till 5:30, so there will be a bit of networking beforehand, and that event will probably run till 7, just after 7 o'clock, so that everybody can get home and have some dinner. But slightly a different event, because we're going to have a few drinks, nibbles, generally a face-to-face catch-up, so people can sort of share their learnings over the course of the last few months. And we have got Billy Cobbett as our guest speaker. So I've written all of this down because he's a man of many talents. So he's had a role within the UN. He's global sustainability and urban development expert. And he's also currently one of the trustees on the Cirencester Community Development Trust. So he should be a really good speaker. So if anybody's, doesn't have to necessarily be a member, there will be a small charge for the event, but the details will be going up this week on our website so that you can get booking for that one. So that's our next event. We're probably going to then have a bit of a pause over the summer and then restart in September. So if anybody has got any speakers that they would like to get involved, then do ping me an email, or Howard, just let one of us know and we can get them involved. But thank you very much, Howard. Great session today. So thank you for sharing your time and your expertise. And I'll get all of the details sent out to everybody who attended. And if there's anybody you know that couldn't make it, let me know, but we will try and get this call recorded and up on the website shortly. But thank you very much.
Thanks everybody.
Thanks for joining us.
Bye, everyone.
Have a good day.
Bye.
Thank you. Oh.